and anyone who has a long-term or a several month-long injury or break from running feels that as well. And I think about how my ability to dream again had to also be rebuilt. And I think that's because I think if you asked me in November, what are your goals for a spring track season, I'd be like, just finish one.
Welcome to For the Long Run, the podcast exploring the why behind what keeps runners running long, strong, and motivated. I'm your host, Jonathan Levitt. Through personal and professional connections in the running world, I have the privilege of getting to know some amazing athletes. I've always been fascinated by the psychological aspect of running, and this podcast is aimed at exploring this and much more. I hope you enjoy. This episode is brought to you by KINeSYS. It's sunscreen, just better. May is Skin Cancer Awareness Month, and given that skin cancer runs in my family, I'm proud to partner with and share KINeSYS with you. Now that I'm up in the mountains of Colorado, skincare and sun protection is more important than ever, especially with summer just around the corner. Their sunscreen spray makes application simple, and there's no scent or fragrance either. It's different than any sunscreen you've tried, and so light you won't even feel you're wearing it. This episode is brought to you by Super Coffee, the healthy, delicious alternative to sugary coffee drinks. Super Coffee was recently named the fastest growing food and beverage brand in America by Inc. magazine, and after tasting a bunch of their flavors, I can see why. Their coffees contain zero sugar, and many of them contain 10 grams of plant-based protein. They're growing in popularity in the running community, and I'm excited to share a special discount with you. They offer a 60-day money-back guarantee, meaning if you don't love it, you get your money back, no questions asked. Grab 15% online with the code FTLR or look for them nationwide in 25,000 stores like Target, Whole Foods, Walmart, Kroger, and CVS. Cheers. Welcome back. I have Nikki Long joining me on the podcast today. Nikki, thanks so much for taking some time to chat.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
For sure. So you are Nikki Noodles on Instagram. So who is Nikki Noodles or Nikki Long?
Yeah. So Nikki Noodles is a childhood nickname that stuck with me well into my 30s from my parents. I think I was a noodly small child, but Nikki Long is basically just a girl with a dog and a truck and a passion for finding meaning and adventure in the world. So that's who that is.
I love it. I see your dog behind you, and also on your wall.
Yes.
Is the photo on the wall also your dog?
It is. It's his self-portrait. That's what I say.
He took it himself?
Yeah, he painted it himself.
Beautiful. Perfect. So given that this is a running podcast, and I love what you said about exploring an adventure and having a truck and all that good stuff, we'll dive into that too, I'm sure. But let's sort of set the stage with you as a runner. You run for Raleigh Distance Project competitively.
Yes.
Do you remember your first run?
Ooh, I remember I remember one of my first races. I won the district mile in 3rd grade, and I remember just running really hard. And then suddenly the girl in front of me stepped off the track, and suddenly I was leading, and I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm gonna win." and the rest is history. So ever since 3rd grade, just been at it.
3rd grade phenom to elite running. I love it. That's not much in between there, right? Just that was the
Right.
That was the trajectory.
It's just 20 years. It happened so fast.
Great. Well, this has been the fastest podcast I've ever had. This is fantastic.
That's it.
So jokes aside, you win the 3rd grade. You win that mile in 3rd grade. Did you have the thought like, hey, I'm good at this? Or was it just like hey, I'm out here for fun, and that was fun?
Yeah, I guess I have an older brother who was also running. And I think when I was younger, there was a lot of anxiety about doing sports, and I was pretty shy. So being on a track and everyone can see you running the whole time, I didn't really like that very much when I was younger. And then I think by the time I got to high school, my coaches in high school started moving me up and saying you got to run with the fast girls now because you could run with them. And that's kind of when I started to feel like I could be competitive and became just a better, more concentrated focused runner on, and really understanding the sport more and what it did for me at the time and still today. So
Very
that's
cool.
like the progress.
My coach has told me to start running with the fast girls too, so I can
You
relate
can
to that.
relate. Perfect.
um, so you moved on up in high school, running
hmm
with the faster crowd. What did collegiate running look like for you?
Yeah, so I ran at Boston University and did 5 years there. Did my fifth year there as well, and I don't think I ran great in college, looking back. And I think at the time I really imagined it as being like the only time I could devote in my life to to be competitive in running. And once I graduated, it was like downhill, like this is the end. So I don't know what to do after that. And I quickly found that to be not the case. So if you're listening and you're in college and you think it's the end, it's not.
It gets better from here.
And it really does get better because you can just make what you want from it and so much more. um, so college was kind of, it was a good, I loved being on the team and I loved going to BU. I don't think I ran super well when I was there compared to kind of where the progress up to that point and then the progress after that point.
Got it. So I recently moved to Colorado, but for 5, 6 years I lived right around the corner from BU. So
Right.
I
And
love.
I'm from Colorado
We
actually,
just did a
so
swap. Where
exactly.
in Colorado are you from?
Fort Collins.
Nice.
hmm
What were your go-to routes in Boston?
Ooh, in Boston, probably Muddy River, like Jamaica Pond. And then obviously like by the Charles, but only in like good warm weather, never in the winter.
Too windy.
Uh, way too windy and cold. Kind of heading out to like the BC Res. We had a few routes out through those like Newton neighborhoods and stuff that we like
Nice.
to do from campus.
I moved from the BU area to Beacon Street, so super far away.
Oh, gotcha.
Um,
Yeah.
last May, and so the Muddy River became my like go-to for anything, 6 to 9 miles long. And then I love a good Beacon Street to Calm Ave loop through Newton. You
Yeah.
can't beat that. Um,
hmm
so you ran collegiately for 5 years, and now
hmm
you're with Raleigh Distance Project. How
Yes.
did that? And first, can you explain what is the Raleigh Distance Project for those who haven't heard the three or
Yeah.
four other episodes I've done with RDP athletes?
Sure. The Raleigh Distance Project is a 501c nonprofit elite women's distance team based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. So currently we have 7 people on our roster, and we're a team devoted to really like our mission is high level competition, community engagement, and creating a safe and open space within the sport of running. And I guess it'll be a 4 year birthday later this year. So we've been established for 4 years. And I've been with the team for maybe a year and a half. So I'm not one of the originals, kind of one of the benefiters of the formation of the team.
Very cool. And what was the process
hmm
like of joining the team?
Yeah, they had a year and a half ago, they had an application process. So on the website, there's a form to fill out, and I filled it out, and they were accepting new athletes at the time that I joined. And then they picked me and a few others. They brought 4 of us on board at the same time when they expanded the team about a year and a half ago.
What is it that you wanted to get from the team?
I was looking for a group of women to train really hard with, and a sense of team. So between college and when I moved here to Raleigh, I had trained on my own. I had trained with what used to be New Balance Boston is now Battle Road Track Club. Um, had trained with them for a few years when I lived in Boston, and then was training on my own for a number of years. And I just being in the sport and being and moving and having a common goal of improvement was something that like really draws me to the sport and keeps me in the sport. And finding the Raleigh Distance Project, kind of checking all those boxes, as well as having this like just this huge community like support and engagement was just like awesome. And so I kind of, I mean, I also moved here and I didn't have any friends at all. I didn't know anybody in Raleigh. So obviously I first looked for running friends and then kind of found out about them. So got pretty excited about that.
Cool. What do you want to
Mm-hmm.
bring to the team? What would that goal be?
Yeah, I think so. I'll be 31 this year, and I feel like I have. Uh, I'm gonna sound like an ancient person. I feel like I have experience that younger runners and younger athletes and people like right out of college, like I feel like I have experience that I would like to share with younger generations, and whether that's like how to show up at practice or how to like run a track race or get into a track race post collegiately, like all of that struggles of like maintaining and competing in the sport. I feel like I can bring some of that to the team, as well as just like I think there is like a desire to expand like the diversity of our team as well, and I think that's something that a lot of us are pushing for right now, and making some changes internally to focus the team on some of those issues within the running community as well, and that's just like a personal passion, an important factor in what I see is like moving forward in the running community.
For sure. Well, as a
Mm-hmm.
fellow person who's about to turn 31 this year, I wanted to stop you when you were saying older runner, because we're not.
Yes, no,
um,
it's true. I know. It's yeah, but 10, like those 10 years after college and now, like I feel like there's times when I'm like, what am I doing? Do I want to keep doing this? I don't know. Like, I wish I could ask somebody like who has done this to like figure out what's the benefit of making sacrifices for the sport or for competing. And there's just like those types of things. Just not feeling alone.
yeah.
Like really, just like not feeling alone in that, and that's like a common thing for an athlete who's always identified as an athlete of like, how do I like mesh that with like all the other parts of my life and still do that? So
So how do you do it?
you wake up really early and you get your run in. I feel like so I'm a graduate student, a PhD student at NC State right now, and since I've also worked full time after college, so I've have the schedule of the very early morning run workout, and just squeezing things in here and there. But I think it is a lot of balance, and I think that there's things that on short term you can sacrifice for your performance or for your goals, that in the long term you're going to look back and you're like, why did I make such a big deal about that? Or like, you know, um, just like small things like that. And I think it's just about finding a balance. I've taken a lot of running breaks, and in which I've done and done other things. I have through hiked 2 long distance trails. Just I do archaeology fieldwork, and that requires me to take time off as well. It's just like the schedule and the physical nature of the work is just too much for me to be like happy doing both. So it's kind of like picking and choosing, and it doesn't have to always be in one basket. I guess is kind of the point there is the balance.
Yeah. I had Mary Johnson on the podcast, and she talked about sort of looking at it via seasons. And some seasons it's one way, some
Mm-hmm.
seasons it's another. She talked about it related to motherhood and work and
Mm-hmm.
injuries and all sorts of things that like you can't be 100% at one thing all the time. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a healthy perspective to have. A lot of people, when I ask them specifically about balance, they either say it's overrated or they're doing what's meaningful to them right now, and that will
Mm-hmm.
change. And that's, it ebbs and flows. So I think that
Yeah,
balance
it's
with
interesting.
balance is important too. You mentioned something that I found interesting. You said, why am I doing this? Why does it matter?
Mm-hmm.
This is an exploration I had with Stephanie Howe on the podcast a couple weeks ago. And I told her, like, I was running down the street one day and I was like, why the hell am I doing this? Like, why do I go for a run every day and then post about it on Instagram and then do it again tomorrow? Like, what's the point? And so
Mm-hmm.
we dove into a bit of an exploration of it on that podcast. And my, TLDR version of it is I love the process. I love sharing the process and looking back and getting
Mm-hmm.
better. Like today, I did a hill workout that had reps that I failed previously. So 3 minutes at altitude, um,
Mhm.
like not max effort, but I don't know, 85%. And I ran out of gas the first 2 times I did this workout. And today I did more of those long reps faster to completion. Same hill, same legs, same,
Mhm.
similar workout. But today I did it.
Right.
And that's fucking awesome. Like that's what I love about the
Mhm.
sport. And that's the meaning I choose to add to my own running.
Mhm.
And whenever someone's like in that, like, why does it matter? What is it? I always, like, I had a friend who messaged me. She was like, I'm struggling with my why. I'm training for a race. It's a 100-mile race. How do you explore your why? And I was like, well, I've got a podcast. Do you want to come on and talk about it? So she's coming on next week to
Yeah.
talk about that exact question. Um, so I love asking this question to people who are either consciously or subconsciously thinking about it. So my question to you is, why do you do it? Why did you go for a run
Mhm.
today, or why are you going to go for a run today? Why is the watch that's on your wrist a Garmin versus a nice silver watch?
That's definitely the why is really important, I think, if you're gonna keep training in this sport. Like if you've been a collegiate runner or ran in high school and you want to keep competing, you do have to figure out your why, right? Like I don't make any money doing this. We have sponsors and we have a lot of support from the community, for the team, for RDP. And I don't do it for that. That helps me do what I do. It helps us do what we do. Um, but I think a lot about, for me, I always come back to the idea of like movement, because when I take a break from running, it's usually to do like something else very active, um, with a different, or well, maybe it's not that different, or a different physical purpose, right? Like I'm not doing running anymore. I'm hiking a trail, or I'm working on a project, or those types of things. And just the idea of that, like, movement, I feel helps me to understand the world around me. It gives me a space to like think and to brainstorm, to process. But it also gives me a time when I can shut everything else out, when I don't want to think and brainstorm and process, and focus on a singular task that I can accomplish in that moment. And I think that's like, for me, that's the why. It's like I can either like bring it all with me on the run and like tumble it around, or I can be like, nope, this is my singular focus. I need to practice this one focus. And I find that that's like, this idea of focus too is applicable to like I think literally everything in life. Because if I'm sitting here and writing a paper for school, I need to have a singular focus to like get through that assignment. Or if I'm doing some menial task that I'm goes, this is boring, but I have to do it. Like having that like focus, and being able to complete something and to have success in that is like just getting your workout done and hitting your splits. Like that is just like such a pickup for the day and for, yeah, on the way to your whatever race you're training for.
Yeah, I love that. It's a vehicle to understand yourself or navigate
Hmm.
what else is going on. A couple years ago, my chiropractor, Brian Kent, um, who also dabbles as my therapist when I'm laying on the table.
Don't they all?
Yeah, right. Um, Picked up on basically, he basically said I was using running in the exact way you just described it.
Hmm.
And because I was going to therapy, I was leaving like everything else outside of running and just running for running's sake. And I think that when you can have that focus of, I'm just doing this one thing for me right now, it can be so powerful, and it brings structure to the rest of your day. And
Hmm.
I think when you acknowledge this component, you can choose to make running a non-negotiable because it makes everything else better. And
Hmm.
that's the context that you need to have, I think, to be able to put it first, because people are like, "Oh, I run, I'm selfish, blah blah blah." No, you're not.
Hmm.
You're selfless. You're doing something for yourself that allows you to show up in a better place. So I'm guessing you're one of the
Hmm.
people who you wake up early in the morning because getting that run in is a cornerstone of your day, and you're a better
Hmm.
person because of it. Is that a correct assumption there?
Yeah, I would say that's like absolutely true. There's definitely been times when I think, oh yeah, like like when I stop competing at a high level, how am I gonna start my day kind of question. Like, I guess, do I just drink coffee and read the newspaper? I was like, I have to find, I mean, obviously I can still run in the morning.
I
It's
do that,
not
but then I
like
go out
I
for a
won't
run.
run at all, but right, exactly. I was like, maybe I'll have more time because I won't have to do a specific training plan or a specific run on a certain day. Um, so I definitely think that I'm a person who that morning run is yeah, the golden hour of starting a good day. And it's, you can wake up and be grumpy as hell, get your run in, and come back and feel like a totally different person. And your day feels half over, and it's 7:30 in the morning, and and you're just your hands off and you're ready to take on the world.
For sure. Thanks again to KINeSYS Sunscreen for supporting this episode. Everything from the ergonomic bottle to the ingredients they include and also leave out have been developed specifically for those of us who love to stay active and be outdoors. Available in select retailers and online, grab a 15% discount with the code FTLR and step up your sun protection game this spring and summer. Visit them at KINeSYSactive.com. That's KINESYS active.com. Thanks again to Super Coffee for supporting this episode. I have been loving their French vanilla and hazelnut flavors and the cold brew cans. Super Coffee combines the caffeine from 2 cups of coffee with protein and healthy fats to give you hours of focused energy with no jitters or crash. I love it as a strong start to the day. Receive 15% off of your purchase at drinksupercoffee.com/FTLR or use the code FTLR at checkout. I recommend trying one of their variety packs or bundles. If you give it a try, let me know what you think. And now back to our conversation. So you mentioned you're in a PhD program at NC State. What is the PhD in?
It's in biology with a concentration in forensic anthropology. So if you've ever seen the TV show Bones, she's a forensic anthropologist. So that's exactly what my life is like. Super hot FBI agent and everything. Lots of the technology is all there. It's exactly like real life. So
cool. And how does the PhD process compare to running? Where's the carryover between running and life in the educational perspective, from the educational perspective?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's definitely a long process, right? It's 4 to 5 years of kind of one singular focus on a research project. That's a major research project that you do. But there's also going to be like the little milestones that you have to hit along the way, right? And I think about like, I mean, your classwork and your coursework, they're kind of like little workouts because you learn like the ins and outs of all the topics that you need to master your overall topic. And that's kind of like what running workouts are. You're just practicing running fast for a while, and then you take a break and you run easy. So those are like kind of like the balances of being in academia and in training, like running training. You're just working out your brain muscles all the time, like all the time, but just enough to end up as just a master of your topic.
I love that. I think that the affirmation or reminder of the process, like it's 4 to 5 years. We're thinking long term. We're
Mm-hmm.
using these little check-ins as data points, but they don't. I'm not gonna say they don't matter, but the sum of them matters for sure. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like a race. Like you cannot draw validation or um, affirmation or whatever from one of these single data points. But at the end of
Mm-hmm.
this 4 to 5 year period, you've done something pretty freaking sweet, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's that culmination of everything up until the big race day, right? Um, and it to me, it really has to be about the process because the process is really long, and 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 then once you get, once you graduate and finish your project and hopefully do something to small to change the world, then you take that on to the next thing, and the next thing you work on is better. So
Have you always been able to follow that approach to running, or have you ever been pretty focused on numbers and metrics and hitting splits and that kind of stuff?
I would say I'm definitely like a science data person. So I feel like I am focused on numbers and splits, but I think that's like more of a microcosm rather than like looking at it more big picture of how many days did I miss my splits. I give myself a lot of grace in that regard. And I think that's because at times when I was training alone, I would compare to previous results or previous workouts and say, well, last time I did this workout, I did it, 2 seconds faster a rep and I had less rest, and like that typical just like internal comparison. Um, and just having to step back and say, that's not where I am right now. I'm here, I'm not there. And me being here, I need to do the things and meet the standards that I can meet now. And that's, I think, like in school too, I think that sometimes where I'm like, I put a lot of work into this project or presentation or, things that you turn in for class or you turn in for publication, and working on those. Sometimes it's harder to get those things done, and or they're not as interesting as the thing you want to be working on, or the data didn't come out right, and so you don't get to say what you want to say. And so that's just kind of the I guess the gist of the self comparison. I've definitely been there, and I think I just got sick of it, and it was exhausting, and I just like refused to do it anymore. And I'm just like I am where I am. Like, take me, like this is me. Like, I can't do anything about it, and I can just keep working at it and keep looking ahead rather than looking back.
So as a 30-year-old runner who has gotten to the point where you're focused on the process because of the experiences you've had in the past, like, I had a goal of running sub 3 for 4 years, and I didn't run sub 3 until I stopped caring about running sub 3. And
Mm-hmm.
if you had told me when I was 25 to stop caring about running sub 3, I would have said, "Shut up, let me do what I want." And
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do this and like be way too cocky in my fitness. Um, I don't know that I could have gotten to where I was without um, failure, missing it. I don't know. Um, and so I'm always like torn between, like, I think that just hearing this over and over and over again for those people who are stuck in that, I need to hit this. I want, like, this is my goal. I define myself as this. Like, they either need to
Mm-hmm.
keep failing at doing it or hear it enough from other people like
Mm-hmm.
yourself, like the 47th time I've told that story about, running, running sub 3 on this podcast. Um, and I think it's like, as you said, like you're not alone in this process, and so many people deal with the same crap that everybody else deals with. And so I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if it's helpful to hear it or not, but or I don't know how I would have responded hearing this conversation 5 years ago. But um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm right there with you on that progress with the
Right.
process.
And I think that too, it's like, it's not only about hearing it, but I think it's also able to, like, you have to be able to talk about it too. And I find that if I am able to find words that express exactly how I'm feeling about something to somebody else, that is like a huge thing. So I'm lucky to have, a group of teammates that I run with pretty frequently, that are at similar places in their training, doing similar training. Um, and I can say, hey, I felt really bad and like really like not very confident in these last workouts. And then they say, me too. Like, even like that kind of reaffirmation of like, well, look at what you did. You did that like way fast. It was hot. It was, like kind of just like reaffirming that, like, just because you were a few seconds off or you weren't exactly where you wanted to be, you still did it. That you can't change that at all.
For sure. Yeah, I think the reminder of that is definitely important. Is gratitude something that you intentionally practice as part of all of this?
Gratitude in the like what way?
However you want to define it, whether it's like
However, oh boy.
my gratitude was I'm thankful. I was actively thinking about being thankful that my long reps were at the beginning and not at the middle or the end.
Oh yeah.
But like it can be something like insignificant, or in the moment it was
Mm-hmm.
significant, trivial like that, or I'm grateful for health or whatever, like some sort of like
Mm-hmm.
physical practice where you write it out or whatever.
Right. I think. I always like to start sentences with I think, because I usually say I think,
And
and
then
then I say
think.
I think a lot actually. Yeah. And then but I mean I am a person who spends a lot of time in their mind and thinks about things rather than like saying things, or like think about things before I say them. Um and I for gratitude I last year I was very very injured, and I think the gratitude that I practice now is really to do with health and fitness. Just being able to go for a run with my friends every day is like absolutely amazing. I um, herniated a disc in my lower back and needed back surgery last summer. So I had a pretty crummy year last year overall with the pandemic and back surgery and all of that. So just the gratitude to still be able to move is like totally not lost on me, and I don't think it ever will be after that and a few previous injuries too, but definitely after just kind of the last year. Like I mentioned before, like movement, just the idea of movement, I can't imagine my life without it, and super fortunate to like have realized that, to have experienced that enough in my life to realize how important that is to me and how quickly it can be changed.
For sure. Talk to me about the injury process in 2020, and more importantly, the recovery process. What was, I also went through an injury at the beginning of 2020, and I came back as the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic was starting. And the timing like could not have been better. So I'm curious to hear your story there, and how you used movement as a way to cope and survive 2020.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I it was at first it was bad timing, and then it was really good timing. I think because things started to shut down in March, and then at the end of April, I started to have pain in my lower back and kind of took a break. And we kind of were like, well, nothing's happening. Like everything's still shut down. It's fine. But that was really the first month and a half of the pandemic was how like running was how I kind of was able to kind of deal with the stresses of the unknowns back then. And so missing that was a pretty big deal at the time, and that was like one of the things that I like, besides being like this actually physically hurts, like that's annoying. The other thing was like, how am I gonna like I mean I have a dog, so I take him on a walk, that's fine, I can do that, but just losing that space and that like processing space was difficult at first, and then it progressively got worse and worse to the point where I really couldn't stand or walk for longer than a minute or two at a time, and very quickly got that bad at the end of June. And at that point, most things, everything in the fall had been canceled, so I was really not concerned with like when my next race was going to be. I was concerned with like, let's get this surgery and get feeling better. Um, and then I would say like from there on out, timing was like perfect. Like if there was ever any time to like throw my back out and get back surgery, it would be the summer of 2020. Cause like nothing was happening. I had no responsibilities. The time from my surgery to when classes started again was like perfectly aligned, and kind of was able to, most classes, everything was virtual in the fall. And so it was just like I didn't have to go anywhere or be anywhere, and I couldn't go anywhere and be anywhere. So it was kind of like a good combo of where like I wasn't missing out on anything really. And then building back fitness up in the fall, I think we kind of were hopeful. I guess the beginning of the year we were hopeful that things, and this has been the case, more, there's way more track meets and events happening now as things are improving in the country, and everyone's getting vaccinated and all that great stuff. And the timing I think was just really good for the where I was in training and coming back from that as well. So at first it was like, this is the worst because I need to run right now, to turn into like, well, I can't run at all, and this is what I need to do for my body. And so it was like kind of a mental shift of like, how do I get through this and back to running really fast, to be like, this is what I need to do, and I need to do this the right way so that like I don't go through this process again, or I don't hurt myself again. I need to strengthen everything to support my body.
For sure. Talk to me about the return to
Mm-hmm.
running.
I started running 1 minute and then walking for 4 minutes and then running for 1 minute. And I did that for like 20 minutes for a week. I think total time off, It was 6 weeks of no bending, lifting, twisting, nothing, no running. And then I kind of started cross training for another 6 weeks and then started to hit the ground running. And I favor soft surfaces now to kind of take the impact off of some of my joints
And
and my
because
back.
they're awesome.
And because they feel great and they're always in the best places.
Right.
So there's really no reason not to. So it was a very slow progression. I think about this a lot actually recently because I was just thinking about all of the PT and strength work that it takes to like get your body from zero to back to like competing level of like every single muscle fiber, everything that I would normally be able to rely on had to start over. And anyone who has a long term or a several month long injury or break from running feels that as well. And I think about too about how my like ability to dream again had to also be rebuilt. And I think that's because I mean, I think if you asked me in like November, like what are your goals for a spring track season, I'd be like, just finish one. Because I don't think I was able to like want to dream again because I was still grieving the losses of 2020, whether that's things being from the pandemic and from being injured too, of just not being able to move. And I just think about the correlation between, yes, I have to build every single muscle fiber, but yes, I have to return to this place of I can dream and look forward to those. And with the risk of my heart being broken again, of like failing, like I might try and do all of this work to get back into shape and ready to race and say, this is my time goal. And if I fail at that, like that's going to hurt a lot. And I think I've gotten to a place where it's like, I can set time goals and I'm looking forward to hopping on some track races soon, and just be able to go for those. Because like I'm YOLO and I don't want to have to look back and say, oh, I was too scared to go for it after, you kind of had just the ability to go for it taken away.
Yes. I love that. Particularly the part about your ability to dream again needing to be rebuilt. I think that most people listening to this podcast probably are in a similar place.
Mm-hmm.
How did you approach that? And talk to me about that process.
Yeah, let's see. I had been through a similar injury with my back before, but didn't need surgery the first time. And when I had come back from that injury, this was about 3 years ago, I was very frustrating. And part of that frustration was that I was training on my own and running on my own a lot. And I think now having support of close teammates, but also just, friends in the running community in Raleigh, really just connecting and checking in on me there. There's no way that I could have like come back from this on my own. And I feel like that's a very cliche thing of like, oh, I had all my friends helping me, or like I had the support from the community. And it's like so much deeper meaning than just that. It's like feeling just so, especially during a pandemic where you really can't go anywhere anyways, nothing's open, but you also can't like get up and move and do anything. You feel especially alone, or I felt especially alone doing that because I couldn't go anywhere like physically and then also like socially. um, and I think the process of just like coming back to a place of being able to dream again, um, I think I looked back and thought about every stage of my comeback and thinking when I was like, okay, they said only 6 weeks till I can start running. And then they said, okay, another 6 weeks of just cross training. And then they said this, and it never really felt like I was out of it, like out of the end. And I think I thought that because I made myself think that of like, oh, I'm just still in this phase of comeback. I'm like, not ready for that. I'm not ready for that. And it's fear, really. It's just like driven by fear of, I guess of failure, of that all the work that you've done is for nothing. And it just has to be a lie. Like you have to like just convince yourself that that's a lie, because if there's no positive, productive thing that can come from that mindset if you're going to continue to train. And it sounds like I'm telling you to lie to yourself, but you just have to like that part, you have to lie to that part of your brain,
It's a
because that part of your brain
disconnect,
is wrong.
right? It's
Mhm.
forcing a disconnect. So I was listening to the Some Work All Play podcast today, and Megan Roche says the perfection, or maybe I think it was David. Um, anyway, one of them said the perfection is in those moments that are imperfect and how you respond to them. So it's this like it's the piece that when it's not going well,
Mhm.
how do you respond to it? That's the only piece of anything that matters. It's not how do you
Mhm.
respond to being on top of the world and winning a race, or everybody knows how to respond to you're happy. It's great. You're elated.
Right.
Great. What's next?
Mhm.
It's how do you respond to when your mind is telling you this is wrong, or
Mhm.
when you've lost the ability to dream and believe in yourself. Like, okay, what's next? And the champions
Mhm.
are the ones who can take the what's next and turn that into fire. And it sounds like what you're suggesting is a little forcing a little bit of a suspending belief to allow yourself to dream. And um,
Mhm.
so I've set my own personal goal of um, running a sub 250 marathon. And 2 years ago, I ran a sub 3 marathon, and that was a 20-minute PR. And so this is now a 10-minute PR,
Mhm.
and I don't really know if I can do it, but it's the ability to dream. And if I do
Mhm.
it, or if I don't, or if you race again and you hit your time goals or not, like it's the aspiration of getting better that matters. And
Mhm.
I've found a ton of inspiration from reading Peter Bromka's writing about like burn the boat
Mhm.
and just like fuck it, like just believe, like
Yeah.
childish belief, like I'm gonna do this
Mhm.
because I'm gonna do this. And
Mhm.
sort of like I said, suspending the rational part with a bit of a dreamer attitude
Mhm.
towards it.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a huge part of it. And I mean, it's scary. Like it's a scary thing to do. And I think once you like realize, I think the other part too is that like when you're going through something, like the only way to get to the other side is like to go through it,
Yep.
and like not to go around it and not to go under it and not to ignore it and go the other way. Like you have to go through it to get to the other side. And I think that was another thing that I realized, where a days where I'd be like, I don't know, like, do I want to keep doing this? And I'm like, but I want to be on the other side of this. Like, I want to be on the other side. And the only way to get to the other side is to go through it and feel all the things and do all the things that I need to do, and experience to get there. And that's also a scary thing, because that's like a lot of very many unknowns on all aspects of like what is it going to be to go through, and then what is it really going to be like on the other side.
Is there visualization at play there for you?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said before, I think a lot. So I definitely have like I'm imagining like a road, and yeah, this is like a very visual thing. Where you're just like your car is like idling on the side of the road, and you want to be at the end of the road, because I don't know, maybe there's like ice cream down there or something. And and you're like, but I want the ice cream here. Like I want to sit here and have the ice cream. But you can't. You have to go like down to the end of the road. So you just gotta like turn your engine on and chug on down there.
Is visualization something you practice regularly when it comes to races or training, or like as you said, you know what you want, where you want to be. Do you see
Hmm.
yourself doing that?
Yeah, I do. I definitely, before races, I definitely visualize at least like the ending part of a race, and I practice visualizing it exactly how I want it to go, or like the best possible outcome for me. And there's some of that where I visualize that mostly, but I consider like other options of like, okay, well, what if someone takes it early? Like I have to visualize like, am I gonna not miss a beat and go with them? Um, and that type of thing. That's definitely something. And it's been a while since I've raced like a real race, like over a year now. But that was something that I did, in indoor last year, before some races, of just visualizing like you can't miss a beat, and especially on track, in the shorter distances too. You lose precious time very quickly. So
Yeah, I think it can be such a powerful tool.
mhm.
I was training for North Face 50, which finishes over the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. You spend the first 98% of it in Marin on the trails, and you finish
Mhm.
over the bridge. So I spent many runs. I would run commute from Brookline up the river west and then
Mm.
go east, and I'd finish along the Esplanade, and my office was in Kendall Square in Cambridge. So I would visualize the Longfellow Bridge as the Golden Gate Bridge
Yes.
as I was coming down the Esplanade. You can see it for miles. And so I would just like
Mhm.
see myself running over it. And this was always at the end of the run. So I was 8, 9, 10,
Uh,
12 miles in, and it kept me going. It was like, I need to put in this work in order to get to be this guy that gets to run across the Golden Gate Bridge. The joke is
mhm.
I sprained my ankle at mile 18, and I never saw the Golden Gate Bridge by foot, but I drove across it.
Dang.
But
Man.
but to your point, the mind is such a powerful tool, and I
Mhm.
think that like the physical aspect of running is like anyone can do that, and like do the work physically. But I think that whether it's, putting the pedal all the way down in an 800, or, kicking at the end of a marathon, that's the
Mhm.
muscle you need to sharpen most.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something too, like you talked about, like on a run or something. I think a lot of times in practice is like you're doing a workout and you're finishing the last hard rep. Like I'm always like, okay, what do I do? Like this is a race. Like I need to hold my form together. I need to like imagine like this is like the most important race of my life. Because the more you practice it, the when it comes time to do it, like you've done the practice. Like here you go. I've been
Practice
here
makes
before. It's not as
progress.
scary.
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. I think my last question is, if you had to speak to 21-year-old Nikki, what would you say?
I would tell myself to take a chill pill. And I would be like, stop being so anxious about whatever you're anxious about and just like enjoy what you're doing right now. And don't worry about what you're going to do next year, 5 years, 10 years. And you're well on your way to like doing what you want. Um, and there's plenty of time for it. So I would definitely tell myself to chill.
Love it. Awesome. Well, if we want to find you and your super chill journey, where can we follow you?
Um, what am I? I'm at Nikki_noodles10 on Instagram. So you can follow me there. That's probably the best, the most active social media.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking some time to chat, and hope to see you out there soon.
Cool. Thank you.
Of course. That's it for today's episode. Like many long runs, it's sad when it has to end. I hope you join in next time on For the Long Run, and in the meantime, happy trails. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean a lot to me if you shared it so that others can find it and enjoy it too.